Hi there YouTube, Joel from Jonesy's, and in today's video we're gonna go over all of the details on our latest Cummins swap Suburban. We've kind of struggled with what to call it. It is a 1994 big block Suburban, now Cummins 12 valve, and it's got a 4-inch lift. And so we've kind of bounced some ideas back and forth whether or not we want to go with the black and white theme, kind of like cop car, so call it the Police Interceptor Edition, or call it the Great White, or call it Jaws. Let me know what you guys think we should call this diesel Suburban in the comments below. And while you're thinking about that, we're going to give you a recap of how we got to this point.
So here's what the Suburban looked like when we got it. Paint, fade, engine ran good, but it had 220,000 miles on it, so it was definitely time for a repower. And we just dug right into it, stripped off all the doors, pulled all the interior out, completely gutted it, cleaned everything as we went, and we uncovered a lot of rust. Door rust, bad paint, rust on the front of the hood, rust on the seams at pretty much every single door, and then even like bleeding through under the windows, so we had to pull the side window. But we were able to treat it, wire wheel it, and convert it, and it turned out pretty nice. We also had to deal with some mice infestation. They like to make some nests, and a ton of body work, lots and lots of stud gun work to get the dents pulled. There you can see kind of finished product. Test fitting the rear taillight so that we know everything's going to fit. And then smoothing all of that heavy dent work out with some reinforced filler and some glaze putty. Prepped the body. DA sanded almost everything down to bare metal. Lots more dent work. Pulled off all that trim. You can see that trim is gone there. And found completely worn out door pin bushings and rollers. Stripped the hood completely down to bare metal so that it will get some good paint. Did all the body work on the front fenders, pulled all of that stuff apart. The disassembly on this Suburban went on for a while. Did a coat of epoxy primer, then 2 heavy coats of high build primer. Wet sanded all of that stuff down, and there's the finished product on the hood. 3 coats of high solids clear. Stripped the roof rack off because there was a leak. Stripped the top and got it painted up with, again, high solids clear, and voila. Body and paint was done. That was a slog. Started putting the glass back in and the doors back on, but before the doors go back on, we had to replace the rollers and all of the pin hinge bushings. Finally, we were able to get the door panels put back on so the windows could go up and down. And before we could put the interior back in the rest of the way, we had to prep all of the fender flares. Coated those in satin black single stage. The rear glass was the wrong tint because it had been replaced at one time, so it went to the glass shop. And while it was at the glass shop, we tore into the engine. Engine was relatively low miles. Cummins came out of a 96, so we just basically had to clean it up, inspect all of the different components, inspect the cylinder head, make sure it didn't have any cracks on any exhaust seats, and installed the high RPM valve springs. New gaskets all the way around, and sent the injector pump off to the injection shop. Pacific Fuel Injection, those guys just do an awesome job for us. Put it all together and coated it Cummins beige, kind of our signature on most of our builds. We use the Cummins beige. Bolted it up to the transmission. Now the transmission went to Metro Transmission right here in Vancouver, Washington, and those guys did a great job. They put in a super low stall converter, billet input shaft, upgraded a core from a 97, so it's got all the upgrades. Bolted it up to the Cummins with our adapter and our mounts, and got ready to put it into the chassis. But before we could put it in the chassis, we had to clean the chassis, pulled the fuel tank out, and replaced the nasty sending unit. You can see the rust there, with a diesel sending unit, and cleaned up that front frame rail like it was just really bad. There's a bushing that was totally blown out. Bundled the TBI wiring off to the side so we could clean, and we pressure washed and degreased and pressure washed and degreased many times to try to get as much of that gunk and grime off of there as we could. Started to install the 4-inch lift, had to cut and modify a bunch of that and clean the underside. Turned out really actually better than I was expecting. Lots of hand work, lots of wire wheel work. We spent a lot of time underneath this truck. Then we finally were able to start coating it with the rust conversion paint. You know, we like to use Chassis Saver. Upgraded the brakes with a power stop kit, drilled slotted rotors, new calipers. Also upgraded the steering box with a red head 4-turn heavy duty, and used all Moog suspension components, bushings, tie rod ends, things like that. Cleaned up the original firewall. That looks great. And got ready to install the Cummins. And bam, put the Cummins in. Here's a good shot of how much firewall clearance you guys would have with the Cummins installed. And then we moved on to the radiator, new AC condenser, and started to get all of the tedious work of getting everything hooked back up. So upgraded the headlights, got that started to put back in, and there was an auxiliary tranny cooler, and then there she sits. Looks good.
So after we processed through all of the body and paint as well as the suspension with the engine out, it was time to start doing the diesel conversion. Now, if you guys are familiar with some of my other builds, you can see that about 50% of them we run intercoolers, 50% of them we don't. This one is kind of mild. It's not going to be towing very much, and so in order to maintain a really clean swap, we decided to not do the intercooler. Obviously, that stuff can be added later, but very simple. We sell a DIY kind of U-weld it together intake flange right there, and then with a single mandrel bent 90 and a 45. With our low mount conversion friendly manifold, you can see like turbo clocking and everything turns out pretty nice. It's very clean swap. This is also our high flow air intake. We added a brace there. We don't generally include those in the kit, but we might offer that as an option. Factory 454 radiator. So again, some of the insulation details, you can see the holes on the mounts. They just get slotted back. Modify the core support so that it has clearance so that this radiator can sit vertically. So here you guys can see how much fan clearance there is. You can pull the fan off and there's plenty of room. So these installations, I really like building the ones that don't have the intercoolers just because of how clean and how factory these installations look. As you can see, like this looks like it is meant to be there. It's not there's nothing cobbled together, and everything fits really well. It is very tight on this side with the turbo, as well as all of the rear heat stuff, but it all fits, and it fits pretty well. So we added in a battery post junction block right there that comes directly off the battery. And then obviously we've got our voltage regulator, and then this is the grid heat timer relay. This right over here, that relay is for the voltage regulator. And then over here, we mounted our grid heat solenoids. So again, with that air cleaner, there's quite a bit of room on this fender well. Factory location for the battery. This one, starting out as a gas, did not have provisions for 2 batteries. That might be something that we add in a little bit later. This being in 1994, it started out with a TBI big block, and so we were able to retain the original throttle cable, and we just add on this throttle end from Locar. So that pretty much sums up all like kind of the engine compartment stuff. We still need to build a fan shroud that you can kind of see over here. It's in process. So fan shroud will be next. And then also obviously we need bumpers. We're going to go with Move for the bumpers, some LED lights. We opted to go for the factory GM Sport Grille. It's comes in this satin black, which we color matched the fender flares to work with that. Now, interiors on these vehicles actually are pretty robust, and they stay pretty good. Like these door panels, we just needed to clean them up and they all turned out nice. We did, however, have to replace the carpet. So we went to Auto Custom Carpet, got an original color carpet and put that in there. And then for stereo, the aftermarket comes through and they actually sell a conversion adapter plate to run a double DIN stereo in position of where the original equalizer would have been. And then also they give you a little storage compartment right there where the original radio was. So the interior on this cleaned up really nice. Everything went together pretty well. Obviously, we needed to spray dye a lot of the scuff plates, put new weather stripping on it, and then obviously painted everything nice, including the door jambs. Generally, I prefer to run the NV4500s in these, but there were some requirements by the client that it had to be an automatic. So again, we mount the Quick 2 transmission controller in the center console below that cup holder. Makes for a really nice clean installation of that Quick 2 controller. So now we'll go underneath the truck. So underneath the truck, we spent a lot of time cleaning this frame while we were installing the 4-inch Tough Country suspension. You can see the frame rails turned out really pretty nice, actually. They cleaned up better than I thought they were going to. There you can get a really good look at the brake upgrade. We went to Power Stop for the brake upgrade. Came with drilled and slotted rotors as well as calipers. Nice upgrade for these big heavy Suburbans. Now, we get a lot of questions about the exhaust systems that I put on these, and we kind of, right there, you can see a transition from 3-inch to 4-inch. And so I built a custom downpipe out of 2 mandrel bent 90-degree pieces, and then transitioned into a Diamond Eye kit. Now, Diamond Eye has stopped making the kits specifically for these Suburbans because of some emissions issues. But the trick is you can still buy the individual components for them. So meaning you can get the tailpipe section, you can get the intermediate section, you just can't get an entire kit. So we ordered individual pieces as well as the big muffler and the section to go up and over the rear axle. So any of you guys that are building your own stuff, that's kind of a trick. We may end up offering those individual pieces as a dropship item from Diamond Eye through our website, Adventure Vehicles Northwest. So here you can see that the chassis really did clean up nicely. We put undercoating on the body and coated the chassis with rust conversion paint. And it just looks super clean underneath here now. So in the next video, you guys are going to see the finishing touches, the final driving, as well as the bumper fabrication from Move, and then also the final test drive. So this Suburban build is basically just going to be 2 videos. This one kind of gets you caught up with all the work that we've done. Next one, again, finishing touches, test drives, as well as the bumper fabrication. So please Give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you get notice of when we post more updates. Thanks for watching.